What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Week 9 Waiver Wire Targets video presented by Front Yard Fantasy. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my buddies Jay and Josh. And today we are going to be going through 6 players that we think you should be adding to your fantasy rosters in Week 9 to help you win that championship. Jay, we're going to come to you for our first player. Who's the first guy we're talking about today?
So I know going back to this player feels like you're going back to your ex-girlfriend you had a toxic relationship with, you broke up with, you go back with her, you broke up, you go back, and you see her to party, and it's like that one more time. You know what? It's going to work this time. I'm going to give it one more try. It's going to work. Talking about DeVante. Yeah, I'm talking about DeVante Parker. He's averaging 8.6. Yeah, I know. But you know what? He's looking really good these days. He's working out. 8.6 targets per game. He's had no less than 7 targets at any game that he's played. Since Tua's been back, the Dolphins are throwing the ball a lot. Past 3 games, they're averaging 42 pass attempts. He's averaging 12.7 points per game in each one that he's played. The defense is not playing well. They're desperate for playmakers. Will Fuller still can't get on the field. He's the deep threat in this offense. He looked really good this week. Even though it was a tough matchup against Buffalo, he played well. I think you could do a lot worse for somebody who's freely available on the waiver wire as a wide receiver 3, a flex play, especially with bye weeks. I think he's somebody you can throw in your lineup and have a decently safe floor and have some upside if he's able to get a touchdown or 2.
You know what, Jay? I'm willing to give her another shot. You
one,
convinced me.
This is the time. This is the time it's going to work.
She won't be toxic this time, right? She won't be toxic.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
I'm praying. I'm hoping. I'm with you, Jay.
Now, Jay, I just have one concern with DeVante Parker, and I think that's Jalen Waddle in that offense. We're all excited about him, what we had seen, especially when Parker was out. Do you have any concern that this offense could shift his direction, or do you feel pretty safe in DeVante Parker's target volume?
I think with that many pass attempts, as long as they keep it up, they really don't have a running game.
Yeah.
He's more of the short intermediate routes. DeVante Parker I watched a lot of the game this week against Buffalo. He was the guy when third downs, Tua was looking for him deep. He was looking for him. He was his go-to guy. So I think they're both going to be involved. I think they want this to be a big play offense, and they're going to pass the ball a ton.
Yeah, I like that. And I think you hit the nail on the head with how this offense wants to operate. Josh, we're going to come to you for our next guy. Who is the first guy you're bringing up today that you think we should be adding off the waiver wire?
All right. So my first player is really 2 players. It's 2 running backs, Adrian Peterson and Jeremy McNichols. All right. First of all, we have to mention that Derrick Henry is expected to miss 6 to 10 weeks with a foot injury. So that's essentially the remainder of the fantasy season for the most part. Initially, I thought this was going to absolutely skyrocket the fantasy stock of Jeremy McNichols, who is a very good receiving back with 21 catches this year, but he's only had 7 carries so far this season. However, we knew the Titans were going to look at other running backs, and they did. Today, they signed the 36-year-old Adrian Peterson. And, honestly, the signing makes a lot of sense. The Titans are really thin at running back behind Henry and McNichols. And Adrian Peterson has had, even last year, he had some solid games with the Lions, and we know their offense is not great. So the Adrian Peterson signing really does make things messy. I could easily see him come in and get the most carries for the Titans the rest of the season, but he's not going to be Derrick Henry. Well, no one in the NFL can really replicate what Derrick Henry can do. Now, having said that, this team is still going to run the ball. And I think there will be fantasy value to be had in this backfield. I personally think that both Jeremy McNichols and Derrick Henry should be added off the waiver wire. Peterson, he might be the safer option for carries the rest of the season. He was signed for a reason, and it makes sense that the Titans want him handling the majority of the carries. But I actually believe that Jeremy McNichols has more upside because he's a good pass catcher, which Peterson doesn't really offer. And if the team does, in fact, just make Peterson a backup or maybe it's a 70-30 work split in favor of McNichols, he could easily be a top 20 running back the rest of the season. Like I said, I think they're both worth an add, but if I was going to take a shot at just one, it would be Jeremy McNichols because I absolutely love his upside. He would probably be my number 1 waiver wire priority this week.
I'm right there with you on which one I prefer between Adrian Peterson and Jeremy McNichols. I think the assumption that they're just going to plug AP in to that Derrick Henry role and try to make the offense run exactly the same way is a little bit short-sighted. Now, if they do try it, I don't think it's going to work out. How I view this playing out is they become a much more pass-heavy team now that Derrick Henry's gone, which would absolutely benefit Jeremy McNichols more than Adrian Peterson. I love that one, Josh.
I do have to mention one more thing. We're recording this on Monday night, and the trade deadline is tomorrow. It's on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if the Titans do somehow trade for a running back, that could obviously change some things. So
that was going to be my question for you, Josh. You know, if they sign somebody, if they trade for somebody, would you still be interested in McNichols since you said he does have that pass catching role?
if they're trading for someone, they're giving up draft capital or some quality player to get him. It really limits McNichols, and then I'm not nearly as interested in either Adrian Peterson or McNichols.
Yeah. So keep an eye on that,
Makes
guys,
sense.
as this trade deadline approaches. Make sure you're watching for any news there because it definitely affects the waiver wire ads this week. Guys, my next player, I'm going to stay at the running back position. I'm only talking about one guy, though. On the Washington football team, we are going to talk about Jaret Patterson, the running back for WFT. Now, we all know Antonio Gibson has been dealing with a shin injury lately. The Washington football team did their best verbally and publicly to try to make us seem like it wasn't a big deal. He was going to be a full go. But now in 2 of the last 3 weeks, Antonio Gibson has seen less than 40% of the snaps for this Washington football team. He's not seeing the field like we expect him to, or like we expect a lead back to. Now, in his absence this past week, Jaret Patterson stepped up. He had 11 carries that he turned into 46 yards, and it looks like he's going to be the guy that's going to be taking over that Antonio Gibson work if he has to miss time or is on a snap count, while they're going to continue to use J.D. McKissic in that passing role. So while his upside is a little bit capped because he's never going to get that receiving work, that's for McKissic, he's a running back that is getting a lot of touches. And if anything happens to Antonio Gibson, his injury flares up, they limit him even further, Jaret Patterson's the next man up in that offense. He's definitely worth an add at this point in the season.
Yeah, and everything that I've read too about Gibson's injury is that this is not something that's going to get better until he's able to rest it. So the rest of the season, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse, if anything. So I think that's a really good pickup.
Yeah,
and this was also the first week really saw this happen. He should be on a lot of fantasy rosters going forward.
Yeah, guys, we're going to move on to our next player, Jay. Who is the second player you think we need to be adding this week?
So we're going to stick with the Washington football team, but I'm going to go with a guy who is currently on IR, should be activated hopefully soon. Logan Thomas. They said he should be out about 4 weeks, and that was close to a month ago. As we know, unless you've got one of the top tier guys, tight end is a crapshoot, and he was somebody who really turned it on last year so far this season. In the 3 games that he's played, he averaged 11 points per game. He had 2 touchdowns in those 3 games, and this is an offense that's desperate for playmakers. So I think he's somebody you could throw on the end of your bench. If you have an IR spot, he's still on the IR. Now, he could be activated at any moment, but, it's something that take advantage of it while you can. Pick him up, throw him on the end of your bench. If you can throw him on your IR slot, do that. He's somebody you could pay big dividends by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and we're seeing Ricky Seals-Jones find success in the tight end role in Logan Thomas's absence, and I don't think anyone here is going to argue that Ricky Seals-Jones is a more talented player than Logan Thomas. Don't get me wrong, he's thrived in that role, but Logan Thomas is the better player and is going to step into a role where another tight end has been producing. I love that pickup, Jay. And the time to do it is now, not next week once he is activated. Do it now. Get ahead of the curve. You can likely pick him up for nothing. Your league mates might not be paying attention to that.
And Logan Thomas was on the 3 weeks he did play before he got injured. He was on the field 100% of the snaps. This team signed him to a pretty solid contract. They need him. He's going to be a top 12 tight end after returning from the IR, in my opinion.
Yep. Josh, who is your next guy this week?
Well, it's another tight end, believe it or not. It's the Steelers rookie tight end, Pat Freiermuth. He was drafted in the 2nd round, and honestly, I think this guy would have a lot more hype coming into the season if he wasn't overshadowed by Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts is awesome, right? But now we are actually seeing Pat Freiermuth's talent showing in this dink and dunk Steelers offense, okay? Ben Roethlisberger loves to throw the ball short and over the middle of the field, and really Juju Smith-Schuster was getting a lot of targets because of this the last 2 seasons. Well, guess what? Juju Smith-Schuster got hurt in week 5. He's out the rest of the season, and it appears that Freiermuth's fantasy value has benefited the most since the injury. Since week 5, Freiermuth's playing time, targets, receptions, and fantasy points have only increased, and like Jay just mentioned, the tight end landscape past the top 5 guys or so is kind of a mess. So I know there are plenty of fantasy managers out there looking for a tight end starter. I think that Pat Freiermuth could be your hero. All right. But like seriously, in all seriousness, I really like his talent. He is starting to grow in this offense. He might have more upside than any tight end on the waiver wire right now. I think he's absolutely worth an add for any tight end needy team. He could easily finish the season as a top 10 tight end.
Josh, I gotta say, I'm impressed how many times you said Freiermuth correctly without stumbling. That was very impressive.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I've been practicing, before the show, before those videos. Freiermuth.
That makes sense. No, I love
and,
that. And you said that Big Ben likes to throw short. I think at this point in his career, he can only throw short. He's got like 1 or 2 deep throws in him a game, but that's it.
Yeah, I love that one, Josh. Freiermuth is a player I was excited about coming out of college, but more in a dynasty capacity, holding on to him on the ends of those benches. So it's very exciting that we're getting to talk about him in redraft this season, that he's starting to become a contributor. We're going to move on to our last player, guys. And you know what? I'm not sticking with the same team or the same position. We are going to a quarterback with the New Orleans Saints. So like Josh talked about earlier, Derrick Henry got injured, likely out for the majority of the rest of the season. We had another very bad injury on the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston going to miss the rest of the season. But Taysom Hill is going to be coming off of the concussion protocol. He's expected to clear protocol this week, be ready for their week 9 game. And in a 1-quarterback league, Taysom Hill is not a must-start player, but he's a back-end quarterback 1 in my eyes, and a relatively safe one at that. He provides a rushing floor that not many quarterbacks in the NFL do, and Sean Payton loves using this guy in creative ways. So with him as the starter, there's no doubt in my mind that he's got a back-end QB1 floor with some serious upside in any given week with the Saints offense and the weapons that he does have there. I just think if you're a team hurting at quarterback, if you had Jameis, if you've been rolling with Sam Darnold, Taysom Hill is a quarterback that you can add and you can plug into your lineup every week for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I don't normally like to talk about how much of your fab you should spend if you're using fab, but in Superflex leagues, if Taysom Hill is out there, spend every bit of your fab, every single bit of it. It's not very often that you get a guy with this type of potential in a Superflex league for quarterback. So without a doubt, spend it all.
Yeah, I know Mike White looked good, but I'd be spending up a lot more on Taysom Hill in a Superflex league than on Mike White after that 1-game sample size.
Taysom Hill's upside is a top 7 quarterback the rest of the season. Easily.
Yeah.
So,
and
I love it.
Usually quarterbacks off the waiver wire that come with that upside don't have a very safe floor. That's what I like about Taysom Hill the most. There is a very safe floor with him. I'm excited about him rest of season. Guys, that is going to be it for our Week 9 waiver wire targets video. Those are 6 players we think you should be adding to help you win your fantasy leagues. Next week, we will be back with our Week 10 waiver wire targets. But until then, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss that one, and we will see you then.
See you on another time.